Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama has publicly condemned Donald Trump's recent remarks about South Africa, calling them an insult to all Africans. Trump, during a meeting with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, repeated a long debunked narrative that there is a white genocide happening in South Africa. This claim, often circulated in far-right circles online, suggests that white South Africans are being targeted in a systematic campaign of violence. But is there any truth to this? President Mahama doesn't think so, and he's not alone. In an op-ed published in The Guardian, Mahama did not mince words. He called Trump's remarks a dangerous distortion of history and accused him of attempting to rewrite the legacy of apartheid. He posed a direct question that lingers. If Afrikaners were truly in danger, wouldn't they be fleeing to towns like Orania or Kleinfontein, racially segregated enclaves that still exist in democratic South Africa? But they aren't. Why not? Mahama pointed out that the real crisis South Africa faces is economic inequality, a hangover from apartheid, where white South Africans, though a minority, still control much of the land and wealth. So how did the victims of decades-long racial oppression suddenly become the villains in this new narrative? Trump's statements were not backed by any verified government data or international investigations. There was no official briefing, no report by the United Nations, no independent inquiry from neutral observers. Instead, his claims relied heavily on anecdotal stories, often circulated in right-wing media circles, and often lacking proper context or verification. But why does that matter? Because when a global figure like Trump elevates unverified claims to international headlines, it doesn't just distort perception, it can shape foreign policy, diplomatic tensions, and public opinion, especially when the subject is as sensitive as race-based violence in a post-apartheid society. To be clear, South Africa does face serious challenges with crime. The country continues to struggle with violent attacks, theft, and a deepening urban-rural divide. These are very real issues. But are they unique to South Africa? Or are they part of a broader pattern seen in many countries battling inequality and historical injustice? And if that's the case, is it fair to isolate one group's pain and present it as a targeted campaign without examining the full context? According to official data from the South African Police Service, SAPS, farm attacks affect both black and white farmers. Yet public discourse outside South Africa often focuses solely on white victims. Why is that? It's also worth noting that while white South Africans make up less than 8% of the population, they continue to own a disproportionately large share of private land, a legacy of apartheid-era policies. Could this imbalance be driving deeper social tensions? And if white South Africans were truly under threat of genocide, wouldn't we see a widespread flight to enclaves like Orania or Kleinfontein, places that still exist under self-imposed segregation? So far, that hasn't happened. This is the deeper question observers like Mahama are raising. Is this about real violence or about controlling the narrative? Who gets to be seen as the victim? Who gets to define what justice looks like? And who decides which version of history gets heard? These are not easy questions, but perhaps they are necessary ones. What Mahama's intervention brings into focus is the power of narrative. When African history is told from a foreign lens, the risk of misrepresentation grows. Complex issues like inequality, land reform, and national healing cannot be simplified into isolated headlines. Statements like Trump's, whether intentional or not, often overlook the historical scars and social efforts that shape African nations today. For South Africa, still working to mend divisions left by apartheid, such claims are not just factually disputed, they are potentially harmful. Africa's story is best told by Africans themselves, and Mahama's remarks serve as a reminder that dignity, justice, and truth remain central to the continent's journey forward. Mahama's stance has sparked a wave of solidarity. African intellectuals, leaders, and citizens alike have echoed his concerns. For many, Trump's claims do not merely misstate facts, they diminish Africa's ongoing struggle for justice. This has revived deeper reflections on past silence. During the era of apartheid, global outrage was often slow. Today, as South Africa confronts the weight of history and seeks a new path forward, many wonder why some voices seem more focused on sowing fear than supporting unity. Across the continent, there is growing awareness. The narrative matters, and Africa will not allow others to define it without challenge. President Mahama's words, "Leave South Africa alone," represent more than a moment of political pushback. They reflect a wider call for respect, understanding, and honest engagement. South Africa, like many nations, is navigating a complex legacy. Oversimplifying its challenges or painting it as a place of reverse persecution only adds confusion to an already difficult task. This is the African scoop. We don't tell you what to think. We give you the facts and let Africa speak for itself.